Can your KDA patterns change during a game? Are disco balls responsible for losing out on healing orbs? And does skipping a headliner always guarantee the other trait? Welcome to the third episode of the TFT Mythbuster series for set 10. Let's get started. First up, let's take a look at the Augment Last Stand. When you take lethal damage, it will set your HP to 1 and grant your entire team bonus HP, armor, MR and Omnivamp. This used to be a very popular augment in combination with economy traits because it allowed you to lose streak longer while setting yourself up for a comeback play. The myth states activating Last Stand will change your KDA pattern. This is a pretty weird one, but let's check it out. The first time you field KDA, some of your hexes will glow and grant your units bonus stats and doubling this effect for KDA units. In set 10, every player receives one out of a selection of unique KDA patterns at the start of the game. To bust this myth, all we need to do is to run KDA, select the Augment Last Stand and lose a fight with low HP to activate the effect. Here I currently have 12 HP while I'm running a 7 Spellweaver 3 KDA setup. All of my KDA hexes are completely spread out. After I lose the fight, we can see that the KDA hexes did in fact change their position since they are now in a diagonal pattern instead of being spread out. I'm not sure if the same applies to the Augment Final Reserves as well, but this is proof enough for me. This myth is confirmed. For our second myth, I heard about something interesting regarding disco balls and healing orbs. You receive between 1 or 2 disco balls depending on the amount of disco units that you have on your board, and they grant a constant healing and attack speed buff to allies that start the fight next to them. The myth states disco balls can get healed by healing orbs. One bug that was confirmed on the PBE was that the disco balls would be a target for Lulu's spell and make her life miserable. This has since been fixed, but considering that a bug like this existed, it's not unreasonable to assume that the disco balls could potentially interact with other mechanics as well. I went to test a few different setups by placing the disco balls usually close to the enemies and mostly ran ranged units myself. I checked every single fight and I could not find a single instance of a disco ball getting healed. Unfortunately, this technically does not disprove the myth, since maybe it was simply my testing method that was at fault. But something I did encounter when testing this myth was something else. Units in the front line weren't always getting healed. I investigated this a bit further and I did in fact find out what was going on. Apparently it is possible with specific positioning for the healing orb to bypass the front line and prioritize a unit in the second row. This is not a super common occurrence, but I was definitely able to witness it a few times. Maybe this bug made players believe that the disco balls were getting healed, maybe it was a bug on the PBE and it has since been fixed, or maybe it just never happened to me. It's not unreasonable to assume this bug could exist, and I have reports of people telling me that they saw something in this regard, so if you ever encounter it, let me know in the comments. For now, I will put this down as plausible. For my last myth, let's dive into a topic that is quite interesting: hidden headliner rules. There are definitely some rules out there that will influence the outcome of your potential headliners. The myth states skipping a headliner will alternate the traits. So the idea here is simple. If you have a country Katarina headliner in your shop and you don't buy her, then the next Katarina that you will see will always have the crowd diver trait as her headliner. Thankfully, this myth is surprisingly easy to test. We just need a lot of gold, keep the D button pressed, and collect all the data. We can now filter the data for the units that appeared, and it becomes quite easy to recognize a pattern. When a unit appears, it will always alternate between the 2 traits. This rule is definitely in place. But what about units with 3 traits? Would you need to rotate all of them to see the first one again? If we filter for Nar, we can see the answer. He goes from Mosha to Pentakill to Mosha to Superfan. The game did not force Superfan to appear as the 3rd trait, and instead the Mosha headliner showed up again after sitting out once. All in all, I think it's safe to say that the myth about alternating headliner traits is confirmed. 3 more myths down and many more to go. I will definitely investigate the headliner rules in more detail in the upcoming future once the ranked grind settles down a bit. If you don't want to miss out on that video, then you might want to consider subscribing to this channel. I hope you learned something and see you next time.